What is going on, Trash Talkers? We are back with another episode for you. Today, we're going to be talking about players that we believe are going to be moved on the NFL trade block. All that and much more coming your way right now! All right, Nick. Well, we have the NFL trade block, and there's a lot of players that we believe are still going to be moved. And outside of free agency, we have some of these players, and I want to take a look at some of them. Let's start off with the one that's been rumored for the last, couple of years now, Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah, OBJ, ever since he was traded from the New York Giants, we all thought, oh, him and Jarvis Landry back together from their LSU days. They're going to be dynamite together with Baker Mayfield. This is going to be special. And guess what? OBJ just didn't show up. He didn't prove that he was the same guy that we knew in New York. And it was all Jarvis Landry. It just didn't seem to click at all for OBJ in Cleveland, and now he finds himself once again on the trade block. But he's been on the trade block for over a year now and hasn't been moved. But it seems as if the Browns finally realized after 5 games of having him and then not having him the rest of the year that they are actually better off without him. And so you were probably going to see Odell Beckham Jr. finally moved this offseason.
Yeah, I believe Odell will end up getting moved, and I'm taking a look at some of the teams that are available for a trade here. I'm taking a look at the Miami Dolphins. I'm taking a look at the New England Patriots, even the Green Bay Packers, who desperately need a wide receiver too, opposite of Devontae Adams, could absolutely utilize the services of Odell Beckham Jr. I'm taking a look at this, and I think, I believe that Green Bay probably makes the most sense for Odell.
Yeah, I think that Green Bay would make a lot of sense. I'm going to take a look at Jarvis's old home, Miami. I think that with the amount of cap space they have and the amount of assets they have to trade away, I think that they make some of the most sense. If you're going to move Odell, you're going to want to get a first round compensation for him because he's still an elite wide receiver in the league. And according to recent trades, that's a first round pick. But the Miami Dolphins have 2 of them, and they would be willing to trade away the 18th overall pick. I think that's a fair compensation for Odell Beckham Jr., and I think that the Miami Dolphins would get a stud in OBJ. So I would expect Miami to have a stronger case for OBJ rather than Green Bay, but I could see either of these two being a strong option for him.
Yeah, I just don't see Odell going for a 1 anymore. The injury history, his lack of production while he was in Cleveland has definitely hurt his stock a little bit. I'm looking at a high 2, maybe even a low 2 at this point. We also have his teammate in Cleveland, David Njoku, who seems to have fallen out of favor with the Cleveland Browns. And we thought in Kevin Stefanski's system that him and Austin Hooper were going to really thrive together and be a dynamic 2 tight end system. Well, it just seems like David Njoku really can't handle being the number 2, and it's just time for him to leave. We're looking at a few teams here, and I got to take a look at the New England Patriots. I got to take a look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I got to take a look at the Tennessee Titans. All 3 of these teams could really utilize a top tier tight end. The Patriots sure as hell know how to use one, obviously with Rob Gronkowski, Aaron Hernandez. They had Ben Watson before that. I mean, they're used to Pro Bowl caliber tight ends. Jacksonville tried the Tyler Eifert situation. They tried it. It just didn't work. I believe that they're looking for a more athletic type of tight end to go along with their quarterback situation, what now bringing in Trevor Lawrence in the draft. And then you have Tennessee, who is likely to lose not just their starting tight end in Jonnu Smith, but also their backup tight end. So it looks like they're going to be in a very interesting spot where they're going to need a tight end here. I'd look at David Njoku, and I'm going to say that he probably ends up going to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, I like the Jacksonville Jaguars as well. And David Njoku, part of the reason he wanted to be moved is he wants to be the one. He wants to be the guy at tight end. And he knew when Austin Hooper was made the highest paid tight end in the league, he was not that guy anymore for the Cleveland Browns. But Stefanski wanted him still because they run a two tight end system, just like Stefanski did in Minnesota. And he's trying to recreate that. Now that Stefanski has had a year under his belt, his old tight end, Kyle Rudolph, has just been released. This is the perfect time to move on from David Njoku. You can go get a guy like Kyle Rudolph who knows the system and works well in that system to replace him. David Njoku, I think, would fit perfectly with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think that his skill set, like you mentioned, he's young, he's extremely athletic. Him and Trevor Lawrence would work great together, and I think that would be a perfect system. Whereas Tyler Eifert was less mobile, more of a blocking tight end, especially at this point in his career. He's just not the same guy he used to be with all the injuries. David Njoku has a little bit of injury history, but is still a much more athletic tight end than Tyler Eifert.
All right, and then taking a look at what we also have on the offensive side of the ball, our final wide receiver here is Allen Robinson, who we all know got the franchise tag to stay in Chicago. Obviously, they only tagged him just so they could trade him. There's no plan on him actually taking a snap this year in Chicago. They just couldn't let a guy of his caliber walk away without getting some sort of compensation back. So I'm going to take a look at some of these teams here. You bring up the New York Jets, you bring up the Miami Dolphins, the Washington football team, the New England Patriots, the same teams that we constantly talk about when it comes to the wide receiver position. They're going to be in the mix here. And for me personally, I have to take a look at either the Jets or the Miami Dolphins here as the number one suitor. I'm going to take the Miami Dolphins. I actually think that they make the most sense here just because they need a guy who can run the mid routes of the offense. You have your 50-50 ball guy in Devontae Parker. They have everything they need. It just looks like Allen Robinson would fit this offensive scheme really well, especially with Tua Tagovailoa, who's used to those big bodied receivers coming from the University of Alabama. It just makes a whole hell of a lot of sense to get him the weapons that he wants. And if I'm Allen Robinson, I've got to be thrilled going to a place like Miami, who was just short of making the playoffs last year.
Oh, 100%. He will be able to work so well opposite Devontae Parker. He won't be double, triple covered all game long anymore. And I think, I agree with you. Miami is the place for him. I don't think the Jets have what it takes to go after him just because Joe Douglas is so stingy with his draft picks. He values them way more than any current player. He'd rather get the 4 or 5 year cheaper deal than pay a guy like Allen Robinson who's going to be 20 million a year. He's not going to do that. So I would expect Miami, who went all out last year on defense, to continue to spend some money and fix up this offense so Tua can actually work. So I like this. I think Allen Robinson, if they don't want to give a first for OBJ, they'd be more than willing to give a first for Allen Robinson. So I think that Allen Robinson would fit perfectly with the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, and I just want to take a little quick shot here with the Washington football team. He would be opposite of Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry, and that would work really well. The problem here is that we don't know who's going to be the quarterback in Washington, and I feel like they have to figure out a couple more of those issues: the quarterback situation, the offensive line, some back end defense struggles that they had last year. They got to get those fixed before they're going after a guy like Allen Robinson, where they're going to have to pay the franchise tag price this year unless they can get him to sign a long-term contract, which if I'm Allen Robinson, I'm not signing a long-term contract in Washington until I have some assurances as to what the future holds. So as of right now, it just doesn't seem like that would be the best fit for him. And if Washington wants to try to take that chance, then by all means go ahead because I think he'd fit really well. I think they just have a couple more issues that they have to work through. All right, moving to the other side of the ball, we're taking a look at Preston Smith, who has kind of fallen out of favor in Green Bay. He was signed with Zadarius Smith a couple of years ago, and they were brought in to absolutely wreak havoc on the NFC North and every ensuing offense that they face. Well, Zadarius Smith has held up his end of the bargain. Preston Smith has not, and it just seems like at this point he's in a situation where he needs a change of scenery. He needs to get out of the Green Bay system. He needs a system that's going to utilize his talents for what they are. And I'm taking a look at some of the best defenses in the league that truly use him. We're looking at Preston Smith going to either Baltimore, the Pittsburgh Steelers, or the Buffalo Bills. Now, the one caveat I'll say is we talked about this prior to the show about the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills just re-signed Matt Milano, so that may take them out of the running here.
Yeah, I think that will do that. And when we look at the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers, Bud Dupree doesn't look like he'll be returning to Pittsburgh. And Matthew Judon and Yannick Ngakoue are both leaving the Baltimore Ravens. So both of these teams could use outside edge rushers like Preston Smith. I think to me, the Pittsburgh Steelers make the most sense just because Preston Smith is more like Bud Dupree and is a pure outside linebacker who has edge rush capabilities. He's not a guy who puts a hand in the ground at all. And I think that Preston Smith could take on that role and work extremely well opposite TJ Watt. We saw how he worked with Zadarius Smith, and TJ Watt's an improvement upon Zadarius Smith. I think that Preston Smith could totally deliver for the Pittsburgh Steelers and help them get ever so closer to making another Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Baltimore situation just because when you take a look at the lineage of Baltimore, you take a look at their linebackers and what they're able to do with these linebackers, and not to take anything away from Pittsburgh because they're the same exact way. But Baltimore just screams outside linebacker to me. It just screams Preston Smith to me. So maybe it's just because I can envision when Zadarius Smith was there, but nevertheless, I just see Preston Smith in a Baltimore Ravens uniform, and I believe that it'll probably go that way. But either way, he's probably going to be headed to the AFC North. And then finally, we move on to Stefon Gilmore, the most rumored player to be on the trade block right now. It is no secret that our New England Patriots are looking to move on from Stefon Gilmore. 2 years removed from being the defensive player of the year in the NFL. He had a down year last year and ended the season on an injury. Obviously, he's fallen out of favor just because of his contract and his age. The Patriots are not in a win now situation where Gilmore's age and contract situation dictate that he should be on a team that is ready to win right now. So I'm taking a look at Stefon Gilmore. You got to take a look at the Arizona Cardinals, who have shown that they're already willing to upgrade this defense with whatever it takes. You have the San Francisco 49ers and you have the Indianapolis Colts, who are losing Xavier Rhodes. There's a ton of possibilities here. I think the one that makes the most sense here, though, is going to be the Arizona Cardinals. They're losing Patrick Peterson, and I like Stefon Gilmore going to Arizona. Bill Belichick making the move to send Stefon Gilmore outside of the AFC so he doesn't have to face him for at least another 3 years. I mean, it's just a typical Bill Belichick move. The Arizona Cardinals possibly give up their first round pick at number 16, which is right behind the Patriots at number 15. So Patriots would have back to back first round picks. I think the move makes a ton of sense. Arizona doesn't need the first round pick because they have everything already set except for the offensive line. If they trade for Gilmore, that's pretty much all they have to sign in free agency.
Yeah, I think that Stefon Gilmore will be on the move, and I think it will be to the NFC West, but I think it's going to be to the San Francisco 49ers. They're about to lose a huge piece in Richard Sherman, and even though he didn't play last season, the year before, when they made it to the Super Bowl, he was huge for them, and they miss a guy that they can count on to lock down one side of the field, and that's exactly what Stefon Gilmore can do. The 49ers weren't very competitive last season. That's just because half the team was completely injured and out. So I think that once they're fully healthy, they can get back there, and Stefon Gilmore would be a huge piece in contributing to that defense. I think that this could be one of the best defenses in the league with him and Nick Bosa on the same field together. It's going to be extremely tough for quarterbacks to do anything with Gilmore locking down wide receivers and Nick Bosa rushing the edge.
Yeah, I agree. I like him in San Francisco. The only reason I disqualify Indianapolis is that Bill Belichick will not do business with the Indianapolis Colts, especially when it comes back to, yes, you remember it, Deflategate. They were the whistleblowers. They all started it, and Bill Belichick is somebody who holds a grudge, whether you believe it or not. He absolutely does. He remembers everything. That mind is a steel trap, and I truly believe he will never do business with the Indianapolis Colts. All right, well, that's going to do it for now. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the channel, damn it! Hit that notification bell. We go live every single day. That'll be all. Peace and love.